concerned East Penn Taxpayers Association meeting. Would you please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? If you can. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Ladies and gentlemen, could we have a moment of silence in memory of our dear colleague, Carol Allen, who recently passed away. Thank you. I'm going to start off by apologizing to our guest. This is one of the lowest turnouts we've had. One of the email blasts I sent out today, or yesterday, with 120 on it, I sent another one out with more than that. That went through, but the second one, our good friends at Google kicked it all back, including my own email to myself, as non-deliverable. So tell me they're not blocking conservatives. Anyway, our guest tonight is Dave Bradely. He's on the school board in Lehighton. I don't want to steal his thunder, so Dave, come on up and let's give a big hand. Thanks.
Okay, I probably don't need this, but we're going to find out.
Can everybody hear me okay or not?
If you don't mind.
Okay, so you can record it better too. All right, so here for a couple of reasons. My name's Dave Bradely. Like he said, I'm an activist that got way more active. Carol had asked me to come up before her passing, and because of what we helped her with at East Penn. And Carol's a good friend that came up many times to visit, and we helped in a variety of ways. And she said, one of these days you got to come down and show other people what you showed me, because it'll help, and all the other people that we've been helping. So for my career, I drive around a couple states and visit customers. And when we do that, I get to talk to a lot of people, and I get to hear a lot of their problems and stuff, just as normal conversation. And I'm pretty open, so people tend to open up to me and give me some of that information. And with that, we've learned to give advice to try to help people with what they're trying to do as a friend. So when my kids were getting older, we call this blame me, by the way, but when my kids were getting older, we realized that there was a lot of things that needed to be fixed in the world before we were going to hand our torch to our 18-year-old and say, have at it, because we're a firm believer in, we made it to 18, you know, you're an independent citizen, and go live your life and do your thing. So back when that 18-year-old was about 2, after my wife and I, you know, we moved up to the Poconos and we're raising kids by ourselves and stuff without all the family support, we finally got a weekend away to a marriage retreat. And we're like, wow, this will be fun. Newly married couple, got a 2-year-old. Grandmom's gonna watch the kid for the weekend. We're away, this is gonna be great. One of those romantic weekends. But we got there, it had nothing to do with romance. It was all troubled couples fighting everything from addiction to bad decision making to everything. And they sat in this meeting room, and you're locked there for the weekend. It's in a hotel and everything, and they fund it. And we're there for the first hour, and all the people were doing is complaining about how bad their spouses were to each other and to the group. And we're looking at it, so, wow. And we realized, I kind of nudged my wife, I said, I don't think this is the retreat we thought it was going to be. But at the same time, look at how many people blame their mom, right? So I realized when I got older and my kids got older, I was going to take the blame so that my wife wouldn't. And that's why we call this Blame Me, because I didn't take the time to write all this down until they got to 18 to give it to them so they could kind of help out. And I'm going to share it with you guys if you're so bold. And we're going to gear it towards the activism side, but you can kind of see some of the things that I was trying to give to my kids. Okay, so first of all, we wanted to look at what's the difference between an activist and a politician. Most politicians have a reason they want to run for office. They tend to be active, and they want to go do something. They want to accomplish something. So they go into office thinking they're going to get the authority to go do something. So what's the difference between the activist and the politician? It's on the paper, but anyway. I know, you don't want to, right? So the activist wants change, which we all do, right? And the politician, when he decides that he's going to feed on the stagnation because it'll get him reelected. And that's what changes. So if he fixed it, you would think he'd want to get reelected because look at all the things I fixed. But the reality is the politician runs on finances, and the finances are a function of stagnation, because if I get two people to fight against each other, they're both willing to spend money to get a politician's ear through the re-election process to not have anything happen. And a perfect example of that comes from my mother, which I'll blame for not fixing this back in the 70s, was the Senate Bill 76. Because that law goes back forever and it's never been fixed. It's like the balanced budget or any of the other things we looked at. When you look at those processes, you realize as soon as someone wants to get reelected, you got to get them out of there. So take their seat is the idea that we were talking about before. Perfect example of this is I run a small business. We were having trouble with our phone system. There was just a microcosm of how Lehighton is situated between the mountains. And what would happen is if a customer tried calling us, it would say we were out of business. Because of when they deregulated the phone companies, they bounced the phone calls around. And if the person that had a deregulated phone didn't know how to bounce them properly, they'd get a recording saying, you're not in business. You would never find this out. How do you know your phone doesn't ring, right? But luckily I was there, customer tried calling me. He says, I know you're not out of business because you were just here. So he called my cell phone and said, I can't call your phone. So then I went to his, I turned around, went back to his office, and I called my office from my cell phone and it worked. And then we picked up his phone and it didn't work. And we're trying to figure it out. So government should help with that. They didn't. But we did figure it out. And after we figured out all the problems, we went to the government and said, okay, now I have an answer for you. Here's what we need to do. And they said, that's a great answer. You know, we're having a golf outing coming up. Would you like to be a premium sponsor? And we'll take on this responsibility with you. And my wonderful attorneys here that run his campaign will help you with your problem because you have already solved it. Platinum sponsor, let me write the check. It's cheaper than an attorney. I'd love to work within my government and help you with your charity benefit. Why not? Right? Write the big check. Guess who else is a premium platinum sponsor to the golf outing? It's the other side of the argument, right? So these pieces came to my attention over the time. And we looked at the Princeton study, fast forward. The Princeton study looks at what gets accomplished and what gets passed. I'm gonna skip to the future. They'll have a clip or a link to that video. But if you get a chance, look up the Princeton study on corruption. And it basically, short story, looks at the number of people that want a law to pass is 100%. Those laws should be passed 100% of the time. Does everybody agree with that? And if 100% of the people don't want it to pass, it should never pass. And that would be kind of the process. The Princeton study looked at this over decades and found out that that was not the case. And it was more likely that I'm going to use a rough number, 70% of the policies and rules that corporations wanted to get passed, they saw that line. Everybody else was just stagnant. So it shows that your input really doesn't involve politics. And when I'm making that twist of, unless you get involved in the politics side of it. And we do it a couple different ways. So we want to talk real short about the differences between a parent, a spouse, and a friend. So a parent has to judge their children, correct them, punish, discipline, or preferably reward them with their success, to motivate that. That's the purpose of a parent. And that's kind of what that parent does. If you looked at it as the old game where you take a hoop, right, and you roll the hoop and you tap it with the stick, that's parenting. You don't knock the stick over, right? You tap it with the stick. And when they're young, you got to pick up the hoop and kind of get it moving until it gets some momentum. And then when they're teenagers, it's pretty much that hoop's rolling down the hill and you're hoping that you can just yell ahead, stay out of the ditch, right? At which point, that's the parenting. But it's okay because they slow back down as they get up to their early 20s and start having kids, and then you're back to helping them up the hill, right? Watching their kids and all stuff. So the idea that a parent can use discipline to guide their child in the direction that they're heading, and they can use a motivation. They can lift them up and move them in the path you're trying to aim them for, or that they're aiming for themselves, and enjoy it. A spouse is different, and I tease my wife of 20 plus years that friends are friends and a spouse is a spouse. Don't undermine being a spouse as saying I'm your best friend. I'm not, I'm your spouse. That's different. There's a lot of things your friends can do together, and a lot of ways that your friends encourage and support things that aren't always the truth. And all, you know, they're friends. They're not going to tell you the truth. They're just going to reinforce whatever you want to believe sometimes because they want to be your friend still. Whereas a spouse has to be a lot more honest with each other to make the decision as to working together, because you're supposed to be a married couple, which makes them both strong together as a couple or an individual. So if you're hurting your spouse, you're hurting yourself type of thing. Whereas a friend might not try to help you, and always in the best interest of what you're doing, although we'd like it to be that way. So the parents need to judge, praise, and on a rare occasion punish. And parents are not friends. We don't want parents to become friends because, again, they got to do a job, and we see a lot of that in this non-conservative world. To me, spouses are special, so calling our friends not really elevating that relationship. It has to be special, and that's the goal of a spouse. And every day that you stay married, it becomes more unique because most marriages don't last very long. So things that are rare have more value. So therefore, the longer your marriage lasts, the more rare it is, the more valuable it is. And if you look at it that way, you can recognize that there's a lot of value to continuing that relationship as a comparison when we look at the word of friends, right? So what is a friend? And I was trying to teach my kids that they should be able to identify friends, right? And how to keep as many friendships as they can. So I came up with these 5 rules. I tried to put them with a numerical code to them because that's just the way my brain thinks. So the first rule of being a friend, you can't even have a friend unless you listen to them. They should listen to you and you should listen to them. It's kind of probably how you found out you were going to be a friend in the first place, is when you physically either talked, met, or joined in on something that they were doing as well. So that's the first part. The second part is 86. I believe 86 was an old Navy thing from what I remember, that, and I wasn't in the Navy, but to 86 something was AT6, which means to discard or get rid of. And it turned into 86, but to 86 something just means you're going to throw it out. So if you are a friend, you're going to look at the things that your friends do, judge them, and decide whether it's good or bad, and then mention it. Hey, maybe you shouldn't cross the street without looking both ways. I noticed you were doing that. A friend would tell another person that to protect them in their best interest. However, here's the difference. A parent will stop that person from doing it. A spouse will probably get involved and prevent that from happening because you don't want to hurt yourself. Whereas a friend needs to take that one step further and say, if you want to take that risk, that's on you. Because you're an individual and friends can't stop other people from doing things the way a parent stops a child. And a spouse doesn't stop the other person, it just leads them in that direction. But that's the difference between a friend and trying to look at the negatives and help them out. I smoke a cigar on occasion. If someone wants to stop me from smoking a cigar, they can educate me, they can teach me, but I'm a right to do whatever I want. And the toughest thing about freedom is letting someone else have some. But at the same time, sharing that information is valuable, right? Then the next one is don't punish them, forgive them and move on. If they happen to like to walk across the street without looking both ways, so be it, you know? God will sort them out. The next one was 256. 256 is 2 to the 8th power, which means 2 times 2 times 2. So if you meet friends and you have 2 people and they met 2 people and then they met 2 people, that's kind of sharing your friendships. What I was trying to teach my kids is if they have friends that they can't share with other people, they should be really worried about what kind of friend they have, that they don't want to tell someone else about this friend that they have for whatever reason. So that was the idea there. And then the last one was 856, which is the 5th rule that gets you from in between of 86 and your friends, which is basically give them the benefit of the doubt. So if they do something wrong or they dissed you or there's a problem, go back to rule number 1 and ask them. Listen to them. Find out what they did and why. See if it was on purpose. See if it wasn't. See what was going on. Maybe they don't want to be a friend, but then at the same time, don't throw away a friend just because you didn't communicate. There's so many people that haven't been friends with each other that I met, and they've never talked to them to find out why. They just know that they're not, and it's kind of a strange thing. So let's skip that forward to back to what we were talking about. So when you think about that trundling, is what it's called with the wheel, if we look at our government as our friend, because it should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. If we look at it and observe, judge, and punish as if that government is our kid, and when we look at it that way, we can use that beaten stick to make sure we keep them on the straight and narrow path. If we don't do it, no one else will. So I'm asking everybody to become an activist, and we'll show you how, so that we can help with that. One of the best ways is to learn your rights as a citizen that's going to control this government, because in America, this is the way it's supposed to work. It's of the people, for the people, and by the people, right? So, or by the people, for the people. So, since it's our government, they have rules. We set up those rules. We had input in those rules. And every time the government's going to make a rule, and prior to it making a rule, in the United States, it forces that government to ask the people first. It's just the fact that they don't get involved that you get this idea that you can't fight City Hall and they'll do what they want. Because once they're elected in, they do what they want. So the goal is you got to get involved. So one of the ways is to videotape everything. I have one of these that Carol asked me to bring down, and then she ended up buying one herself. This is a 360 camera. If I stick this on a table, it now records everything within this room in all directions all at the same time. You put that in a meeting room, you've collected the audience, and you've collected the board or the supervisors or whatever. So the way that works is think of me on the pitcher's mound, holding this camera, and then you take out that camera, I take out my cell phone once it's on YouTube, and I can look at the home plate with my cell phone, and if I move my cell phone here, I'm looking at first base, third base, if there's clouds in the sky, and I can turn it around and I can see if the outfielder's, catching butterflies or he's working, and you can look at the entire room. So if you stick this in a meeting room, when you go back home, you can watch on your screen the entire room, just like you're in this room turning your head. And that camera allows you to do that. They're very inexpensive. Gonna get you to get one. And if you can capture that video and just put it online, you don't even have to say anything, do anything. You show up, you push a button, you sit down, you take it when you're done, you plug it in the internet, and it goes on YouTube. Anybody can watch it. It's amazing. And when she was doing the speakers at that school board meeting, when they were having their trouble that they weren't talking to the parents, I put that on the podium no one can stop you, right? So that's the gist of that, all right? So if you publish these videos and put them underneath transparency in government on YouTube, you'll see that other people have it. So if you look up transparency in government Lehighton, transparency in government Emmaus, whatever you want to look up, other people should be able to find it. And that's pretty much a code name to find these types of videos or any video to a thing. So every time you put one in, tag it the same way, because we want that to be the way people think of C-SPAN, but locally and with teeth. That's what we're aiming for. All right. During one of those meetings, short story, I videotaped the guy, supervisor, leans over to the solicitor and says, "You don't understand, this guy's not cutting his grass. I mean, I don't like to use eminent domain or everything, but I mean, really, should we take his property?" Right? He's not cutting the grass. And the solicitor leans back at him and says, "You can't use eminent domain because he doesn't cut his grass." Followed by, "You'd have to want to park or something. Then you can take it as eminent domain." And all you need is not enough people in the audience to be groaning at this moment for the guy to say, "Oh, it looks like we need a park," right? Or it looks like we have an issue here. The fact that that person made that statement in a video, in a meeting, that's now published on YouTube, by the way, gives you a pause to wonder, what was he thinking? And that, we'll get into that in a second, but maybe not what he was specifically thinking, but what a lot of government officials end up thinking, which is why you want to take their seat. All right, what skills do they need, right? What are the personalities? The lack of government is a perfect government. The less government does, the better the government is. So if we can get their seats and then use the term prevent the reduction of freedom, because the government can only do 4 things in my book. It can add a tax, it can take one away. It can add a rule, or it can take one away. And if we take more rules away that aren't needed, and we reduce the taxes because their services are less, we all win, less government. That's the goal. So by taking their seat, you have that opportunity. Especially if the guy's going to want to, eminent domain a house for grass cutting. Which is, why is there even a rule about grass cutting, right? You got to wonder that. Okay, so there was a book written back in 1849 called Civil Disobedience, which we can reference, but what I want to pull out of it is this idea of a Navy pilot and an Air Force pilot. So the Air Force pilot would say, "It's not in the book, so that means I can't do it." That's the attitude of an Air Force pilot. Very strict, by the book. If it's in the book, I can do it. If it's not in the book, I'm not going to do it. The attitude of a Navy pilot is, hey, it's not in the book, right? And then they can kind of go from there. So when I walk up and put this camera on the podium, it's not in the book, says I can. You don't have to be in the back of the room. You don't have to be over there. You can put your camera wherever you want. At which point, they have to, where is it in the book that says I can? At which point you're forcing them to make another rule to say, okay, we're going to stop him. And the more times you pick that, the more they expose themselves and get thrown out of office. There's an old hockey move that the guy said, well, there's nothing in the rule book that doesn't stop the goalie from laying his stick in front of the net before he leaves the ice. Well, there is now, because the guy did it. And they said, wait a second, we don't like that. And they made a new rule. Government can make rules and they can take them away. Goal is force them to make dumb ones, expose them for being dumb, and then go in there and take them all away. Or block them when they try to put them in. Because some of them are ridiculous. The toughest thing about freedom, for instance, is letting someone else have some. Okay, so how to become an activist. Hopefully my 15 minutes are up. I want you to borrow, beg, plead, ask, whatever you want to do. Get a tripod, like you see back there, and a camera. It's about $200. Go to the meeting, push record, play on your phone, read a book, do whatever you want to do. What I did was I took, in our town, as many teenagers as I could find that needed gas money, because my time was more valuable than that meeting with my young kids and a company to run and things to do. I gave them 20 bucks. Here's the camera, here's the meeting, here's the location. Load it up on YouTube for me, here's the location. 20 bucks in your gas tank. And the guy's like, for going to a meeting? Like, yeah, 20 bucks. He's like, how long's the meeting? 30 minutes, maybe an hour. You're gonna pay me 20 bucks an hour to go record a meeting? Yeah, it's once a month. Here you go. And they would do it. And there's a whole series of them on YouTube. We had an army of these kids going after meetings and recording them for us and for everybody else in that manner. Not only did it drive the supervisors and the school boards and the commissioners and everybody else nuts, because someone was recording their every move and wondering who they were and why they were there, but then they would show up on YouTube and people could critique and talk about them. You controlled the video, therefore you control the message. You could clip out the 20 seconds where the guy asked his solicitor whether or not eminent domain is good for a guy who doesn't cut his grass. I don't think he's getting elected again. But you need that snippet, and you need that army to create our own C-SPAN for local government. Everybody that doesn't have time might have 20 bucks or 10 bucks or a Pizza Hut certificate or movie tickets to give to a kid to say, go do it. I did it by design for two reasons. I wanted the video, I didn't have the time. But I also knew that if they were watching what was happening, they'd get involved. And it's amazing the number of these kids that would be on their phone. Hey, I can Google that. You want to find out the real answer? Because they were so fed up with the idiocy that they saw in front of them that they thought were leaders that have no different skills than anyone else here, no different ability. They just had the ego and the arrogance to say they wanted to be boss. And they can't wait to be boss. And most of them can't wait to be boss because they're not boss during the week, or they're not boss at home, or they're not boss here or there, and they can't wait to be boss. Well, there's a reason they're not the boss. And it becomes really apparent when they're standing behind a desk having to make a decision because they don't even have the basics of decision-making process. These kids had more of that process, and when they raised their hand, they exposed local government. And that exposing local government turned into a podcast. And it works really good. All right, so you got to create a profile for commenting on the local newspaper. Local newspapers are a shill for these government agencies. They get paid tons of money to put in political advertisements, which are a requirement of the political process, meaning the supervisors have to put in an ad if they're going to hire somebody, if they're going to bid out something or do something. The cost of that ad is way greater than if Susie wants to sell her old Barbies, like 10 times the amount, because it's coming from other people's money. It funds most of these papers. So they're very politically oriented, therefore they have a vested interest to be nice to the politicians in exchange for getting all their business for advertising their bids and other stuff. It's a very close legal relationship. You can destroy it by starting to show up and expose those things in the comment sections of the newspapers. They'll start blocking you, but you can just change your name. All right, and then attend the meetings. That's all how you can do it, by being passive. You don't have to make any real effort. You don't have to expose yourself. You don't have to go out in the public and do anything other than just push a button or do your thing. Now, if you want to become more of an active activist, you can take those videos like we did, and we made a documentary called Silence Voices. I got my daughter and some other friends and some kid that's taking movie lessons for college and said, hey, we're going to build a documentary, teach me how. And then he gave us the software and the stuff, and you can actually patch these things together, make a 5-minute short, and put some music behind it and hand it out. And what you'll find is once it gets on either YouTube or Facebook, thousands of people will watch this local hometown documentary about their own town and the corruption that's occurring inside. And once you educate them, it's easier for them to see it. Most people have this blind idea that they're, as I did, they're volunteers, they're doing the best they can. I'm glad they're doing it because I don't want to do it. And that's the wrong attitude. That's where we're back to blame me. We should have taken an active stance years ago. We didn't bother till now. All right, join the podcast. There is a podcast called Exposing Local Politics. Bill runs it. You can sit down in front of him, give him your voice for 5 minutes. Tell him what you think. Tell him when you went to a meeting, what you found out, or what law you didn't like, or what was taking place, or what the local or the federal or the state level governments are doing. And they'll sit down and listen and expose that idea, because it's through that communication that new ideas stem, which is why that sunshine law is so important, that when they're going to make a new law, they have to, prior to voting on it, let the people speak. Because your idea might marriage with someone else's idea, and then it goes from there and they learn something new. Otto runs a paper. You can put an article in it. Just write it up. Send it to him. He'll help you edit it, right? They'll put it together, and off you go. It got so bad when we tried doing that with our local paper, they wanted to bill me $1,000 to publish an article to tell people what we learned. So for $1,000, we were able to print our own paper, which we did for about a little over a year. And we mailed out 30,000 copies, one to everyone in the entire county, Carbon County, for 3 months in a row. 90,000 papers filled with our articles, instead of buying one for the same dollar value. Next thing, take your seat. I have met with government officials and showed them the logic. I showed them fiduciarity of finances. Shouldn't have cash and a real high interest rate. Just like you do at home, take some of your cash and pay off a high interest credit card. Well, first of all, don't even get a high interest credit card. Just because they offer it to you, don't have to take it. You're a government. You're not supposed to spend someone else's money in advance to give it to the people today. That's relatively unethical. You should be collecting money that's needed for today's expenses to incur them. You shouldn't be paying for a benefit today for the future later. I mean, it's kicking it down the road, and you're tagging along an interest payment along with it. So ethically, it should have been a balanced budget from day one. I don't know when they got the right to borrow money, but apparently we gave it to them because we had a chance to stop them, and we have to try that now by going to the inside. Some of the wins. So when we started implementing some of these ideas, we formed a group called Flip the Board. So we're going to flip our local school board. We had 5 people running for the 5 seats that were open. We won all 5 seats with our group, Facebook and videos and all the stuff that we did. The problem was one of our candidates won 2 seats. So they removed her from office, left her in this office, but had to remove her for this office, at which point the judge put in one of the other side. It's just lunacy, but it's what happens. The transparency side, our board meetings are now live streamed because they don't like that I was editing them so much. So now they want to do them themselves. I'm like, hey, that's great. I'm still going to do it. We'll still tape it, but it's great that they got transparency. And every time you get a right to know, if you have a question of your government, you can write them a letter saying, give me the information. They have to give it to you. Once you get it, you can give it to any of your friends. So publish all your right to knows online so other people can find out what you are interested in, and then they can maybe do the same. Up at Franklin Township, we had a supervisor that was in there for close to 30 years. Same guy, same mantra, same corruption, same problems, same issues, same zoning guy that would start a fight with somebody so that the solicitor would then have to argue a court case. And then when they got all the way down to the end, the guy would say, yep, I guess you can use the old building code on your old building after all. And then they give up on the case. But the solicitor already got paid. It was 8 months of getting paid. The business owner had to pay. It's legalized torture through a zoning officer. So we decided we were going to fix it. So me and my happy crony friends got together. I changed from Republican to Democrat which was kind of funny because everybody looked at me. And I'm not really a good libertarian, but I changed to Democrat, put my name on the ticket, got enough signatures, and I was the blocker. Don't let this guy cross-file and run on the other side. And then we picked someone that was much more electable, put him on the ticket. He's the guy. We want to win. I don't care which one of us wins, but boy, I think it'd be great if he won, because I'm going to go do this over here. But we stopped him, and he had a huge write-in campaign, like we were talking about before. As the only person on the ticket, I almost lost to a write-in because he solicited votes from local constituents with the police chief and all the other people knocking on doors. I think you want to write us in, don't you? And it was the funniest thing to watch, but you get the idea. So take their stuff. Same thing, if you get active, there was a Lehighton bike night up our way, and the town had it, and they gave it up. They literally said they didn't want it anymore. They canceled it. Well, a lot of the businesses up that way, that was a big draw. It was good money, it was good for everybody, it was fun. It was a great charity-oriented party. So, with 30 days left before the event, Navy pilot, not me, but like a Navy pilot, doesn't say we can't do it. So we went online, pushed Lehighton Bike Night trademark. I'll buy that for $1, or whatever. And we own the trademark, at which point, my buddy owns it now. And it's his. Why should government be involved? Kick government out of as many of these things as possible, because they don't belong in there. It's a waste. And same thing I told you about the zoning issues. I'd like to get questions and answers. The Sunshine Law is your key to being a good activist, because it was written to give the people the power if they want it. My goal here is to motivate you to either find somebody you're willing to give $20 to videotape a meeting, show up at a meeting, or get involved in that respect and file a right to know, because what we're doing in our district now, even though we don't have the majority, is I'm trying to convince not only our government there, but other ones throughout the state, because we've been talking to, we got a lot more groups because I've been doing these speeches. If we can get the government to publish everything that's available under the right to know up front, we all win. Why should you have to ask for information that they have to give to you if you ask for it? Why not just ask for all of it and have them publish it up front? It'd be cheaper. There'd be no litigation. I have piles of litigation because I asked for information. They said no. I said, wait a second. They said I could have this. So they say, file an appeal. So then you go to the state Office of Open Records. Hey, do I get this information or not? And then they adjudicate. They find out whether or not you do. And when they say, yep, you get it, now give it to them, they have one more bite at the apple, which costs the taxpayers thousands of dollars. They go to their solicitor and say, help us, don't let this man have this information. Please, court, stop him. And they get to go to court, at which point the pile of paperwork grows to stop this poor little citizen that wants the information that the state said they can have. So anything on that sunshine side, I'd like the questions and answers. Real estate taxes, same thing. There's assessments and how that world works. It's a mess. There's a lot of ways you can fix some of that. And then also I got the PSEA on that right to know for information in the district. The Pennsylvania State Education Association, which big supporter. I have no problem with teachers, with a union, or with our kids getting educated. But the use of those funds to fight a court case that stops somebody from having their right to know doesn't make sense. I don't know why a union teacher would pay union dues to give it to a person to spend money on attorneys to stop an individual. It just doesn't make sense. What's that? And that's, well, possibly. But see, now that's accusatory, and I'm not allowed to accuse anybody, but thank you for doing it. But that's the idea. So those types of things are it. Anybody got a question? What do you got?
If we could use the microphones, if we have any questions, I can hand you this thing.
Okay. How long did I go, by the way?
See this one? Yeah.
How long was that, 20 minutes?
Yeah.
Anywhere. Best Buy. It's just called a 360 camera.
And
I
how
think
much is it?
Carol bought hers, about $200. You can, I think she bought one for less than $100. And then she ran up to our place and said, quick, teach me how to use this. I can't figure it out. And then we hooked it up to her phone, and we hooked it up to her thing, and we had a great time with it. She really gets it.
On the Sunshine Act, yeah, you do have the right to record. I think there's a clause in there which our local governments tend, especially Emmaus, tends to rely on, that they have the right to direct where you can set up. So if we put it on...
I have not found that right, that they can decide how and where you want to set up for a meeting.
Yeah,
However, if they have that, the question is, Navy or Air Force, can you prove to me why I can't be here?
I've seen that in the Sunshine Act.
That they can decide where they can be.
Yeah, you have the right to it, but they can dictate. And John, you've seen this already too, haven't you?
Well, this is the great equalizer. This can be anywhere in this room, and it records the entire room all at once. So, if they're going to tell me where I can't be, have at it. This is basically like the casino dome camera that watches the entire room. So,
But
I did not know that. I'll have to look that up.
Yeah, please do, because I know years past, Emmaus, especially at their committee meetings, in fact, at one time they tried to stop the recording of a committee meeting.
Wow. Now, committee meetings are allowed to be recorded. That's no problem. I'm not a lawyer by any means, but all I can do is read.
It's still a public meeting, so
Correct.
So eventually, when push came to shove, they still allowed it. They had to allow it.
So we had a group of about a dozen of us throughout the state. I pulled them in, and I rented a room at the conference room at the local place, and we brought them in from all over the state, mostly school board members, and we shared the information and where it is in the law that allows you to do different things. Like, how do you expel a student? Do you let them sign a waiver? Does a waiver exist? Where's that in PDE code? Can we even look it up? And my claim to fame is I'm not a lawyer, but I did learn how to have one of my employees take every document from PDE, school board minutes, their policies, every superintendent contract throughout the state, and you can scan it into a computer, and you can OCR, optical character recognition, and then you can do a word search, and it'll give you the entire spot of where that word is found anywhere in any of those documents. So it's really easy to ask somebody, show that to me in the law, and then if they can't, say, here, look, here's the law, I'll look up camera, and we'll see where it says camera, and we'll see if it says you can or you can't. And if they can't show you that you can't, be the Navy pilot that says, prove I can. And I don't want to go to court over it, but the same leverage of intimidation that they have. When I went to the Emmaus meeting, a lady came up to me, you can't stand here. And I said, I'll check with the authority. I said, I'll check with the authority. And she's like, I thought I was, she thought she was the authority. No, I'm the citizen here. I'm the authority. I'm the stakeholder. I'll check with me. It looks like I'm good. You find a reason why I can't. Yeah. Never saw someone get so upset that someone even challenged their authority and just said, hey, I thought I was the authority. You thinking you are? I don't see how you are. You tell me how you are. I know how I am. Section 011, 3D stakeholder. That's us, man. We're the stakeholder, right? And if you show it to them, make them challenge the other side. I have found that there's no fiduciary responsibility of a board member, which is just horrible, right? Inside the system. They can make all the dumb decisions they want, and there's no accountability other than, like you said, there's, what do we call it? Sorry.
So the surcharge, illegal.
Surcharge. Except for the surcharge for doing something illegal. But back to this, is it proven that it's illegal? No, so they just get away with it unless someone challenges them. And a lot of times it's BS. And if you call them on their BS and ask them, show it to me in the law, show it to me in the policy, show me where it's written in black and white, they can't do it. And when you challenge, they've never been challenged. I have solicitors that have never been asked or challenged with any of the stuff they say. You can watch my school board meetings and I ask, hey, I thought that we had a right to speak before you voted. And he said, well, no, you had that at the beginning of the meeting. And I said, well, yeah, but this is a new motion. Yeah, we covered that. Hold on, let me read this to you and see what you think. And then I read it, and he goes, yeah, I guess you're right. They would have baffled you with their BS until someone calls them out on it. You got to know what your rights are, hopefully, so you can exercise them. And then poke them with them. Because they've done it the old way, the dogmatic way, so long that it's a mess. And if you can record it, you're going to get other people looking, and they're going to find the mistakes. I get phone calls all the time. Hey, did you know they weren't allowed to do this? Hey, did you know they weren't allowed to do this? And I became the conduit that now I'm sharing that with everybody else. But I collected this stuff from other attorneys, and there's all sorts of people that don't want to go on record, but definitely can give you lots of information. Same with, hey, file this or file that, or why don't you file it this way? Let me show you how to file it this way. You can file for information and the right to know and remind them of the law while you do it. What a fantastic way to file a right to know. You know, and here's the right to know, and by the way, you have to give it to me, and here's why. We did that with the tax rolls in our district. Give me all the tax rolls. I want to know every one of my constituents that owns a property that I'm supposed to be representing because I'm an elected official. I want a copy of it. They told me they wanted to charge me $1,200 for it. I'm like, why would the government have to pay for information obtained by within the government? Doesn't make any sense. So they said, well, here's what it is. So then I made them write it down. And I said, well, here's a court case that says you have to give it to us. It says I have to give it to you, but it doesn't say how. So let's have a war here, and we're going to have a fight. At which point I went to the county and didn't ask for the 5,000 names in my district, but I asked for the 30,000 names in the entire county, at which point they gave me every one of them on a CD and said, here you go. And I think they charged me 50 cents for the CD, you know, and a couple pennies for every record. The point is, if we can get the government to be poked into being transparent, it's the cheapest thing they can do. Right now, the solicitors within the state are using the right to know law as a piggy bank for causing obstructionism, because they force anybody that asks anything to make it into a right to know. So a board member can't just say, hey, can I get the budget last month? And they should have sent it to you. Fill out a right to know. Why? Exactly right. Nobody knows. It's within their policy. So I got on a policy committee. We're going to fix these things. It just takes time. And luckily, I'm not getting reelected because I don't want to, and I'm not going to even run again for this office. Maybe something different, but I doubt it. And the goal is fix it from the inside, leave a path, plow a road, and make it easier for the next person to do the same thing. And then anybody can sit on a board. They're not, you don't have to be all about the world of education. You can learn that on the way. You don't have to be a teacher or an ex-teacher or ex-administrator. 90% of what a board does is oversight of the people that are there. It's about asking the right questions before they do something. They had a committee meeting where they were going to create a new position within the school to wash off the tables between breakfast and lunch, and they were going to hire someone to come in for an hour or two a day to wipe off the tables after the kids were done eating, created a new position, and then leave. They weren't going to ask the person that ran the breakfast, hey, before you leave, spend 5 minutes and wipe off all the tables, or sweep up, or a custodian that they already have hired. They're going to use a new position created. So now my job is to say, wait a second, the board decides if you need an extra person. You're supposed to come to us with the problem. And then if we say you're going to need to hire someone new, then you go back out and get the applicants and decide who you want to hire, and then the board oversees who you hire. That's the process. Most board members are abdicating all that responsibility back to the people that were on there. So even if you, of 9 people, have one thing that you're good at and the other 8 have one thing that they're good at, the board can work very effectively to curtailing this open faucet of taxpayer funds being consumed for some of the most ridiculous reasons, all without any oversight or authority, because there's no checks and balance in the system. That's why Senate Bill 76 is so great. It's not a function of just curtailing the funding from spreading the load from the homeowners to all the people in the community that buy things and all that economy. It's about curtailing the cost and the expenditures of the district. There's a guy running for office up in New York State. He's a libertarian, wants to defund all the administration costs associated with schools, like you were saying. Just get rid of them. Don't need anybody checking boxes to make sure someone's educated. Let's make sure someone's educated. I don't need someone to check on whether someone's getting educated. Let's just educate them so that they get educated, right? And that money should be spent with a teacher, not with somebody checking on whether or not the teacher did their job. A board can do that, and a board can do that through a whole state. I mean, we have, when you look at the number of governments over top of your head, you got a taxing entity called the school board, you got a taxing entity for a township or a town, then you got a state taxing entity, then you got a federal taxing entity, county, right? You got a county taxing entity, and when you look at those layers, each of those layers can only do 4 things. Make a tax, take one away. Make a law, take one away. So if you can tape and get involved in each of those levels, you can recognize that that waste should go away. And most of it is just somebody that wants to say, I'll take that responsibility, which is a very large responsibility if they do it right, but it's very effortless to be moral and do it the right way. It's not that hard to listen, to find out what they need to do, ask the right questions, and then don't say yes or no until somebody actually gets the information to you so you can make an educated decision. So if this was a boardroom and you were going to decide we have dirty tables, how do you want to get rid of it? I'm sure there's a dozen different ways to figure it out, and then you sit there and figure out which one you like best, and then you decide which one you're going to do and why. And then you go back and do it, and then you check to see if the why worked, and if it doesn't, you change your mind and you do it again some different way. But you want to have an evaluation of accountability, and that's what's missing from the system. They don't ever check whether the answer solved the problem. They just add to it. But what else you got? Anybody else? So, in this room, how many, go ahead.
How do you get rid of cross-filing if nobody listens to you?
Well, there's 2 things on the, I'm going to go cross-filing and I'm going to go term limits, right? So the first thing is, would government ever want you to stop term limits if they're the ones in office, right? What's the other reason? Well, they'll never have to make a law about term limits, and that would be that they can always argue that if term limits were important, just don't vote them in. You have that authority and that ability right now. So therefore, I don't have to make a law. You already have that power. Why would I need to make a law to give you power? And I agree with you. So now, the cross-filing, I believe they got rid of that for the school boards, correct? Not yet. It's in the process. So that goes back to the right to speak to your government. And the question you have to ask who wants that not to occur? Well, they're just pawns in a system of, it's a teachers union. It's the administration, it's the dogmatic process. So the only way to stop that is to get to this thing called the Pennsylvania Department of Education. And then you push on them to change the school code that says you can't cross-file to the voters registration side of how they're going to allow them to cross-file. But there's also a thing called the Pennsylvania School Board Association. Now the PSBA, you would think is that a government agency or not? What is it? No. Actually, it's a privately held corporation. So the Pennsylvania School Board Association is a group of people that own a company that take money from districts in exchange for writing and helping write their policies and laws. It's a group of lawyers milking the system, getting paid lots of money. You can do a 990 search of every employee that's part of the Pennsylvania Service Employee Retired PEASers. They're actually PEASer benefiting privately owned corporation. It's the screwiest thing you ever see. Why it still exists, no idea. But one more time, all you need to do is get 5 people on a board and you say, I don't want to pay you anymore. You're your own company. Right now we got 4, we need 1 more. Join in. And that's what we're aiming for. You got to get that power and then fall on your own sword and get rid of it so that the next person coming behind you doesn't have it. And then keep them from taking it back. And that's the idea of that smaller government. Did you guys ever see The Tiny Dot? There's a 4-minute video. I usually throw it up. 4-minute video called The Tiny Dot. Watch it. It's hysterical. It's a graphical representation of the mass of people, hundreds of millions of people, 435 little government, and their IRS enforcers of, 500,000 people or whatever they got. And how those 2 groups of people control 200 million, or 300 million now. This was done a while ago. And it's the same thing. So those people have to take these seats and know that they're going in with a mission to destroy it, fix it from the inside. But the problem you run into is the first question I asked is, what's the difference between an activist and a politician? An activist has rigid principles. When they get into office, they follow the rigid principles and they don't get swayed. A politician wants to be liked, wants to be nice to everybody so that you'll vote for him. So right, you got it. And that's the goal. Is I am probably the most hated person on our board because we question why. And like a little 6-year-old kid that wants to know why the sky is blue, I will ask why 5 times. Why is it blue? Why was it red yesterday? Why isn't it a different color? What do you mean, why? So there's moisture in the air. Why did the moisture get there? How did it get there? Who would happen? And a 6-year-old kid asks these questions constantly. We need to ask our government, why did you make that rule? I'm reading this rule. You can either make a rule, get rid of one, add a tax, or take rid of one, right? Hey, why do we have this rule? Just stand up at the podium if you can. Why do you have this rule? What was the reason for it? Why do you still have it? How do we get rid of it? Why are we still using it? Why are you allowed to cross-file? Who allowed you to cross-file? Who said that we can cross-file? Right? And why are we still doing it? Go ahead.
The only problem with it, especially at the school board, you ask questions, but they never answer.
Funny, right? So what we taught Carol, and she loved it, was the pressure to not answer was only provided by the other board members. So when we told her she's allowed to answer, and she says, what do you mean? I said, I do it all the time. It says right there, section 011, engaging your stakeholders. That's a stakeholder asking a question. We should answer them. Why shouldn't we answer them? I'm going to answer them. Hey, solicitor, am I not allowed to answer them?
Solicitor says yes, but we have a policy
That says what?
that we don't, it's not a dialogue.
Thank you. So if it's not a dialogue, I'm just going to answer them. Is that okay with you, solicitor? Are you going to stop me? Are you going to prevent me as an elected official to not help this stakeholder understand what we do and why? And the best part is, tell them to come up to the podium and ask the questions. Because here's another funny thing. As a board member, by policy, there's certain things we can't ask. As a citizen, and every time I sign my thing, I'm Citizen Dave Bradley, because I'm not a board member now. I'm out in public. The only time I'm a board member is when they're in a quorum and in a publicly announced meeting. That's it. The rest of them, they're just Joe Blow on the street. Citizen. As a citizen, I leave my seat as a board member. I walk over to the podium. Hey, you board members. I used to sit there. You board members are doing this wrong. You need to fix it. Why do you have this rule? What are you doing? Why don't we take this tax money, right, that we just saved? We found a way for our district to save about $300,000 because they were, for whatever reason, $16 million in surplus taxation taken from our citizens, sitting in a savings deposit box, collecting nearly no interest. Not even a money market, nothing, right? So all over the state. So I told our business manager said, yeah, I guess we could do that. And we called in a bank and said, hey, I got $16 million. What can you do for me? And what can you do for me? And what can you do for me? And all of a sudden, our district's making $300,000 more in interest than we did last week. Because all you do, or last, whatever, they didn't actually authorize it because the board has to authorize it, right? Hopefully they authorize it. I don't know why they wouldn't. But the next words out of my mouth is, great, we just saved $300,000 or $200,000 generated by putting our money moving from here to here for the benefit of those stakeholders that we have a responsibility by our oath to follow the law and serve them. Let's give it back to them. You ain't kidding. But here's the next question. Why? Why? Why, right? Pretty soon, they're on videotape saying, why? And unless someone asks them the question, they don't answer. And most of them shut up and won't answer at all. But you just ask it again. And the reality is they bury themselves so you can put someone in their seat that knows the answer. You're right, we should give it back to them. It's their money. We earned it for them. We took it for them without asking, right? In my book, if I'm going to ask you for money, right, and you're going to hand me money, we're going to make a trade. I'm going to give you something of value and you're going to give it to me. I can't force you or compel you to give me that money, correct? If I did, that would be illegal. It's either theft, robbery, whatever. Government uses their authority to take the money from you. Now, you think that you gave them that authority because they're your government. What makes you think that you have a government over you? Right? You're a citizen of the people, for the people, by the people, right? For the benefit of the people. So when he makes a decision as government, you have a right to help him make that decision or not make that decision or get rid of him. And the fact of the matter is, unless you can learn how to get rid of him, and the biggest part is raise your hand and say, I can take that seat. Because the reality is most government entities in the smaller level of government is a coronation. It's not even an election. They cross file, they're the only ones playing, everybody pulls a handle, and they get reelected. They learned how to work the system. You can steal their seats. That's what we did. We kicked out of the 7 members, I believe, that were running, that were incumbents last year. We kicked all of them out but 2. Every one of them. just by knowing that they can and knowing that they shouldn't. And then reminding everybody of what they did and why, and by their own words, don't want to defame anybody, or this is what they said, this is what they did, this is what we showed you that they were doing. You're the constituent. Do you like what they're doing, or do you want to try someone new? That's term limits. So on cross-filing, file against them. Because when they got 20 guys to pick from, people don't even know them. And most, what we found out in our district, I did a real close study on this. The ability for the incumbents to collect votes was 300. We have 15,000 people in our community. But we tested the math, and no matter what, their block of people was 300. So there was 300 people that would walk in with a mission statement of pick this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy, and this guy. And you could see it because when they had pick 5 out of a list of whatever, they all had the exact same number of votes. Except for one lady who no one liked, or a lot of people didn't like, and she got a couple less. But for the most part, the same group and the same number. So we knew what the number was. Once we knew what the number was, all I had to do was create an army of more than 313. And we destroyed them because we knew what we were aiming for and knew how to get there. And what I'm trying to help you guys is meet with Otto. I'll help you. If you want to set up an army of how to get there, it's easy to do. It's a very short hurdle. It's not expensive. We fought against thousands of dollars worth of PSEA PAC money to re-elect people. And we destroyed them because you have transparency, you have a couple activists that can make a vested interest. That's it. Most people are, the silent majority, are pissed. Look at your taxes. They don't even know. They're like, what do I do? And let me show you. And wow, can I do that? Hell yeah, let me help you. Want to borrow my camera? Let's go do this. There's that kid and this kid and this kid. He'll show up to your meetings. It's a great time. Once you have it organized, people are effective with their efforts. And if they feel like they're accomplishing and they're effective with their efforts, they don't mind repeating them. There's nothing worse than going to a school board meeting, putting it up there, and then nothing happens with it, right? But if you put it there and then you give it to the right people and he gets a couple hundred people to watch it, even if you get 100 people to watch it, that's a lot of people. That's more than it's in this room, and they're learning from it. So it's not much effort, but we got to mobilize the people to learn how the effort should be applied, let them feel that they're accomplishing it, and then do it. One of the great ones that I did, which was a lot of fun, so as a running joke, I said that our school board back in the day were going to change their name to the Pirates of the Poconos, because they just did they pillaged. They took so much taxes. They raised them without even having a reason, just to put it in a bank, not to fix what they had. Most of them do this stuff. It's a mess. It's a construction project waiting to happen, right? So I called them the Pirates of the Poconos, and I'd go to my meetings with my pirate badge, right? Because you can. And then we had this little pirate puppet, and we were, hey, look at these pirates taking all this money and not fixing the stuff that we have and doing these studies. And the task force says don't do it, that they hired, and then they ignored their own task force, right? But you get the right to know, and you read it, and you say, what are you doing, right? So you kick them out of office. By doing any of those things, it moves forward. So I got a phone call, because word gets around. A lady in Reading, they had a mission that they were trying to stop the city council from building this thing that wasn't really zoned right, wasn't really the thing that they were supposed to do. They were looking for variances. They're shoving this thing through, right? Get a phone call. What can you do to help me? Where's the meeting? They told me. I'll be right there. Got a nice suit and tie, briefcase. Now, I'm not a lawyer. Make sure we understand that. Nice briefcase, nice thing, eye patch, did this camera, about 4 of those, set up all over. Sit down. Don't say a word. Everybody wants to know who you are. Sorry, I'm giving up all my good skills here, right? The guy, who are you? I don't know, who are you? You don't even have a name on your thing. Can you at least go around and identify yourselves and speak clearly, please, and identify your name and spell your last name for me like it's a deposition? Well, I want to make sure I record your testimony properly. Testimony? I'm in a meeting. Yeah, I know. Public, recording, testimony. Watch what you say. Don't ask for eminent domain for a guy doing grass. Testimony. Every time you go to a meeting, I'd like to ask this question and have your testimony read into the record as to your response. At which point, if they say none, okay, so your testimony was no response. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Have a nice day. Come back the next month, ask the same question. Did I get my answer? I'm supposed to engage the stakeholders. Here's my policy. Here's my reason. Here's your rules that you're supposed to play by as a government that you guys wrote for yourselves. And now I'm going to hold you accountable to them. Or I'm going to kick your butt out of that seat and someone else is going to take it. Because I'm going to show them that you didn't follow your own rules. And that's what we're aiming for. So my whole goal here was to try to convince people to recognize that a little bit of effort to oversee their government, treat it like you're the parent and the government is your kid, give them a little smack once in a while, and make sure that they stay on course. If they don't, let them run themselves into the ditch and replace them. Pick them up, get a new one, because that's what they'll do. Does that make sense? Hopefully it's motivating. The whole idea was to motivate you, say, you can do this, it's fun. I didn't even get involved. I didn't even know we had a school board or supervisor. I was in my business for 20 years in that community. Didn't know, didn't care, didn't, you know. But then as soon as my kids started getting older, and this lady came up to me and said, did you hear that the school's boiler's gonna, you're in boilers, did you hear the boiler's gonna blow up and harm all these kids? And I'm like, what? Look, they're volunteers. They probably just don't know, you know, I'm sure they're fine. No, I was in the meeting and they were talking about it, you know, catastrophic events. And then they made me cry and leave the meeting. And I'm thinking, what possibly could you have asked that pisses off this volunteer enough to make him yell at you, one of his, that he is supposed to be serving, your servant is yelling at the owner, right? To make the owner cry. And you didn't fire this guy? Hold on a second. What I'm thinking it's going to be a funny joke. Like, what question could you have possibly asked that would get that guy to be that upset and mad that he's going to berate you and then you're going to have to leave crying? So she told me, doesn't the boiler have to be inspected every year? And I said, yeah, but what question caused this interaction? That was the question. I'm like, well, what was his answer? And then she told me his answer. And it was basically a stock answer of, who the heck are you asking me what I need to do? And I heard that, I'm like, all right, so the guy does know the answer. He doesn't want to give it to you. And he belittled you in a meeting because he doesn't want to have to answer. When's this next meeting? I'm going. She said, good, it's tonight. I'm like, oh, I got a million things to do. Where is it at? So I go to the meeting. I asked the exact same question. He gave a different answer. He educated himself between the last meeting they had and this one of what to say. And then he talked about this feasibility study, and I said, how do I get a copy? You don't want one of those. It's, you know, 300 pages, and they charge you 25 cents a page. It's going to cost you $80. Is it online? I thought feasibility studies were required to be online. And I thought 2 copies had to be at the district for review at any time by any individual. How do you know that? Well, it kind of says it here in your rules, right? I mean, you and I could play Monopoly together and we might make up our own rules, but these guys made up their own already and we just read them. And they are supposed to hold up to them. He tried shutting me down, throw me out of the meeting. And I said, well, wait a second, you're talking about kids here. I want to know whether that boiler is inspected. So then I called out the guy that was there and said, hey, was it inspected? And he stood up. It was kind of funny. Very telling moment, by the way. So, maintenance manager stands up. Mr. Bradley, I can't answer that question. It's their meeting. Sorry. He sits back down. Whoa, man. Dude, I know you. You know me. I need this answered. I got to find out. At which point he stands back up. I'm really apologize. I really can't answer not unless they tell me I can. I'm their employee. He sits back down. Hold on a second. Let me get out my phone. We're going to call your boiler inspector that I happen to know have his phone number in my phone. And we're going to ask him whether or not that thing's inspected and whether or not my kids are in danger in this school the way this guy's saying that we have to build a new school because this is danger. Meeting's over. No, it's not. Phone's still ringing. Hang on, let's find out. Right? And that's when I got involved in all this crap, because we realized that these volunteers were malicious. They had an agenda that they were aiming for. They were activists that wanted to get reelected because they had a mission that they wanted to see, and they were going to impose on that community. And what they were doing in our area was called gentrification. Raise the taxes to get the old people to leave so new people can move in. That raises the taxes because they get a new assessment on their new house. And they bring kids, which means we need more teachers to educate these kids. It's called gentrification. We shut it down. That middle school that they were going to condemn never got built. We stopped it. Little did I know, like every activist, once you win, we all celebrate and walk away. They are so motivated to be evil that they came back and they built an elementary center before we had a chance. And then when we flipped the board back then and we had new people, then one of the guys died, and then the judge puts on one of the other guys, and instantly the plow trucks are coming in and they're plowing this road. That thing was shut down by that old board before that guy died. How did this thing get built? What the hell's going on here? And that's what we found. There's a high motivation. You have to be diligent like a parent, keeping an eye on that frickin' rolling stick that's rolling out of the way, sometimes way ahead of what we can keep up with, like a teenager, right? But here in government, we have a bigger stick as a citizen. We can knock it over to slow it down, right? And then we can pick it up and say, that stick's no good. That rolling thing's no good. Get rid of that guy. Let's put someone else in office. And we need to do that across the board for commissioners, council people, across the board. But if we start looking at it this way, is what my goal is, hopefully you can start recognizing that you do have authority, you do have the ability, and you have the control. We just never taken it. We're not the 300 million fighting over this 435. Because they're just as redundant in the system and the mantra as anyone else. And literally, one second, literally if this guy says, I'm going to build a highway, the politician looks at it as, I need to spot it out. I can get more money if I have a reason why I start this fight between those two people. Why I sit back as the representative and decide what's best for people. But I need a war first. That's why if you read the Princeton study, you recognize that ultimately they're going to lean the corporate side, but they need people to complain to get to be able to stop the corporation from getting what they want, because they're the ones financially motivated to get what they want. So without an activist standing up, starting a fight, they can't work the system as well. But what we need to do is, you don't need to fight that corporation, you need to fight that politician to get him out. Because obviously if he's playing that war, he doesn't belong. And that's what I'm trying to teach people to do, is don't let them be there just to fight that system. They should only be there to reduce taxes and lower the number of freedom-reducing laws that we have. But, sorry, go ahead. If I'm going over time, I'm sorry, but whatever you guys want to do.
how did you identify people to run with you? Were you a bunch of friends together, or did you know people who knew people? How did you get people to flip the board?
Begged. Nobody wants to do it. Actually, the one person that got more votes than almost everybody combined was a very good friend of ours, gentle old lady, I shouldn't say old, gentle retired lady that worked for the newspaper, and everybody knew who she was. And my wife said, you should do it. And when she said, I don't want to do it, that's not me, I'm not, you know what I mean, I'm not this, I'm not that, I don't have that background, I can't do this, I can't do this, I can't do that. She's one of the best advocates for the people's rights. Everybody knows her. They're willing to walk up to her and say, help me. And the biggest thing I got to help her with is to remind her that there's a set of rules, and she was an ordained authoritarian. So when a person complains, they should fill out a complaint form, let the administrator do his job, and then if he doesn't do his job, then she does her job and says, I'm gonna fix it. She wants to help the person, not fix the system. But she got almost all the votes. She's great. She's actually at the Pennsylvania School Board Association indoctrination for the next 3 days.
Yeah.
And she's learning all this stuff from the inside, and fantastic. The other lady was an engineer that was working for a large corporation. Noticed that the school wanted to redo a stadium. As a structural engineer, she looked at it and said, what are they talking about? So she went up and inspected it and looked at it. And then she went on her personal Facebook page as an employee of this other. I looked at it, I think it's great. I don't see any issue with it. I mean, you can do a couple repairs. I'm sure you can dress stuff up. Doesn't need to be done. Superintendent of the school sends a note to their vendor who she works for. I don't know if you want to be letting her say stuff like that. Right? She quits her job rather than getting fired or being told to keep quiet, honey. Right? She quit. Started her own thing. Said, I'm taking her seat, running for the board. She met me a couple times before that. Hey, what are we going to do? What are we going to do? You're the guy that gets up and says stuff. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And I'm like, well, I can only do certain things. I can take one seat. Why don't you take another one? And then she started the whole flip the board thing, and she got the people together and organized, and she had a mission to fix this problem of intimidation, of malfeasance, of misrepresentation, fiduciary actions, making decisions without information, making decisions without pertinent data, abdicating the decision to someone else that you're supposed to be overseeing, giving the keys to the hen house. I mean, she's fixing all that stuff. She's doing a great job. She's also at the PSBA meeting right now with the same concept of, so how did they get so many people indoctrinated to do this other side? What do they say to make them all feel warm and fuzzy, you know? But, all right, anything else? I can go on all day. We've had 8 years of fighting these things. We're doing good with it, and we don't want to hold anybody up.
Just, how do you deal with the hostile press up there? How did you deal with that?
Sticks and stones, I don't care. We were my name is on the front page of the paper for a month and a half. It's a means to shut you up. It's called a SLAP, Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation. And they constantly, thank you, they do all sorts of stuff. Just have a thick skin and don't worry about it. If we wrote letters to the attorney at the press saying you can't say things that are illegal or wrong or defame me or do other stuff, and their answer is, and listen to this answer carefully, if I'm reporting on what someone else said or did, as freedom of the press in America, I'm allowed to make that mistake once on the front page as much as you want, because that's the way the law is. And let me give you a copy of the case that allows me to do that. And I'll give you a copy of that because I think it's real valuable to know that case.
Well, it would certainly have been valuable back in the 90s because I could write a book on what the morning call did to me.
I know,
It
and
was
so we also,
a decade's worth.
here's the advantage. Find the silver lining. When they put it on the front page that Mr. Bradley has a right to know request costing the district $100,000 to disenfranchise me from our support base of seniors that don't want me wasting money, right? It's going to cost $100,000 to give him this information. Front page, boldest letters possible, make me look like a goofball. The benefit to that is when that hit the press, it hit online, and when someone else was looking up, I heard that somebody cost a lot of money for the right to know, and they Google that looking for not me but someone else, and then I show up and everybody else that has this exact same headline shows up. It's really amazing that all of a sudden people say, hey, you're not the guy, but you're not the guy, but all three of you guys are the same. So now we all get together and we say, all right, so you're trying to help your side, you're trying to help your district, that's who we just met with in a big room saying, so what did they do to you next so that I can be prepared? And what did they do to me next so we can be prepared? They have a game plan to silence people. So the way I'm suggesting to do it is being a passive activist, so you're never put in that harm's way. And that camera is the best way to do it. This camera is an amazing way to do it. And you can do all of it without actually taking that risk, which is what most people do. If you put your head up, someone's going to smack it down. And I'm doing it for him because what the hell? It's fun for me. But, you know, most people, and there's a lot of nonsense that goes on, but I'm of the firm belief that if someone wants to criticize me, and I gave this speech, I know it's long-winded, but send me your critique. I really do want to listen to it and hear it. And then I look at it and I make one of 4 decisions. It was good advice and I took it and it helped me, at which point I'll tell you thank you. It was good advice and I didn't take it. I should have, and I'll remind you that, hey, that was probably good advice and I didn't take it. It was bad advice and I took it and it hurt me, at which point I'll remind you not to give that bad advice again, right? Because it didn't work for me, at least educate you for the next one. Or it was bad advice and I didn't take it and I'm glad I didn't take it and here's why. And then I'll share that information back. So having that critique allows you to correct and make things better. Don't take it so personally, there's just someone trying to make it better. So it's kind of comical, but every time someone gives me crap, I thank them for their critique in an effort to make me better. It drives them nuts. Kill them with kindness. And at the same time, if you find a knucklehead, I constantly give them free advice, whether they want it or not, if they're my elected official. And they have to accept my stakeholder input by their rule that they made that they were going to listen. They don't have to hear it, they just have to listen. And this is also funny when they do the meetings and they silence people from talking. Talking to them works. Drives them nuts, especially when it's logical, rational, ethical, responsible, simple, easy. It wears on their brain every day of the week until it drives them nuts. And then they wonder why they were doing something else. So that's why that was put into play. It's Jefferson saying, or Kennedy saying, or any of these guys that say, you know, everybody has a responsibility to fix government and everybody should try because it works. And that's why they try to silence so many people. It's weird. I never see, and realistically, you've seen it. You go to a place, they have 3 minutes, everybody gets their thing, and the guy's playing on his phone, not even listening to what the people are saying. Because his answer is, don't have to engage. I just have to let you speak, I don't have to listen. Right? And that's what government, and as soon as you can prove that on a tape, I think sharing that information prevents that guy from needing to have this terminal of an issue. You should be able to take a seat. But you got to try. You need enough people to do it. Everybody should run, get the whole block, get them on the board. You can cherry pick one off and put another one on. You can cherry pick one off, put another one on, as long as you have the majority. Weird, right? All in their rules. If you read them, you know them. And then you got it. How many people play Monopoly? Or have played Monopoly? Who puts money in first parking? Right? Who does an auction for the properties? In the rules it says one thing, but everybody kind of plays Monopoly within the consensus of the people that are playing Monopoly today. Or they say, hey, let's just deal out some money and deal out the cards and we'll play halfway through the game forward because we don't have the time to play the whole game. You'll make up whatever rules you want. It's Monopoly. Solicitors have the rule book. The supervisors, the councilmen, and the school boards are supposed to follow the rule book and write the rules. They're also supposed to enforce the rules, and think about it, they're also allowed to adjudicate the rules. They're judge, jury, and executioner as a board. So the only power you have is their own rule book that they have to follow. And they're allowed to change the rules whenever they want, but only if they change them for everybody and moving forward. So if they're going to change a rule that says he's not allowed to speak, they have to change it for everybody. And they're not allowed to make that one because that's a state law that's above their power that prevents them from making that law. But if they make a different one, they have to make it evenly for everybody, which is most of the time they don't want to do that. They only want to do it for their group, their authority, their value to the system is being able to do something. That guy that wants to eminent domain, he didn't care about that guy not cutting the grass. It was the neighbor to that guy that didn't cut his grass, that's spouse or whatever was nagging to cut the grass. And he's thinking, or she's thinking, why am I cutting mine? He doesn't have to cut his. At which point he then nags to this guy that has the power and authority. Why don't you use your power and authority? Prove you have it. Show me that authority. Fix that. Go fix that guy that didn't cut his grass. Use this law and fix that guy. And he doesn't know how to do it because he's just a regular old guy. And he has to ask the solicitor, hey, am I allowed to do this? Luckily he asked. A lot of guys wouldn't even ask. But that's that mentality that it's a rule book, it's monopoly. And one more real quick analogy. How many people watch Let's Make a Deal? Right? Everybody. Do you want to go behind door number 1, 2, or 3? And then the person stands there, looks back at the audience and says, what do I do? What do I do? And everybody's yelling, 2, pick. They have no clue any more than anybody else. So when we did this speech before we were running for office, we told them that what we need people to do is recognize that their job is not to look at Monty Hall and decide 1, 2, or 3, look at the audience and say, what do I do? What do I do? I work for you. Teach me. Tell me. Quick, pick one. Their job was to say, I am the government, your government. Hang on a second. Monty, open up door number 1, 2, and 3. I want to see it before they pick. And then after he shows it to them, then he turns around and says, what do you want me to do? And if they say, throw the virgin in the volcano, they have a responsibility not to follow democracy and harm somebody, but to say, no, we can't do that. And stop. That's a representative democracy. But if you pick one of the ones you want that is not immoral, then he says, okay, if that's what you guys want, let's go get it for you. And let's help you do it. That is how government is supposed to work. And that's what's missing in our system. You got to get rid of the lobbyist, the Monty Hall, that knows what's behind the doors and hiding it from the politician that then asks you, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do? With only enough information to help you guess. And they need politicians that open up the doors, kick Monty Hall out to the curb, the lobbyist, and then says, what would you guys like to do? And then make sure that all the choices there are moral ones within the law, within some rational semblance of transparency that says this is what you're aiming for. Now, how many people think that that analogy fits? Right? And our government typically is Monty Hall, you got to pass to see what's in it. What? There's 3 doors here. Open them up. I want to see them. Anything else?
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Dave.
Thanks.
Really appreciate it. I have an announcement for the SEPTA members.
Appreciate it if you run, because then they, they're the ones that are stuck with all this.
I heard there's a lady trying to put together 5 people to run for East Penn School Board, to flip the board, and also as an honor to Carol Allen. I hope she's successful. Anyway,
On that note, we will help, if we find them, we will help them, we can help advertise, we can print out stickers,
Banners. We can teach them how to be incredibly effective using this book that someone wrote called The Outlier and Tipping Point. And you can go to the right places with very, very little resources. And you can make this mission viral in a rumor way that everyone will spread it for you. And it's easy to do. And it's not a rumor in a negative way. It's a rumor in a good way. Did you hear about this? And then don't give them enough information that they have to find out. But then tell them a little bit of where to find it. They can't wait to find it. They can't wait to be proud that they know it. And they can't wait to share it because they're the ones that knew it before you knew it. And then they want to be involved. And this is standard Machiavellian manipulation of a system, but it's also very effective because nobody cares about this stuff. If you asked who your school board members are, most of you guys couldn't name them. I barely can name mine, and I'm on a board of 9. Say it again. There you go. That's good.
I do want to get this announcement in before it gets too late. SEPTA members, the Christmas party this year is December 18th at the Starlight Cafe, like last year, same arrangements. If you have any other questions, just come and see me. But I'll send, if I don't have your email address, please give it to me. I know you don't have an email, but we'll give you the information then, because all dues-paying members of SEPTA and their spouse is invited, and SEPTA will pick up your meal. So, and then I'll give you further details as we get